I want to speak as well this morning to James Schneider, of course, an important figure throughout Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party. Now he's Communications Director for Progressive International, and of course he was also co-founder of the left-wing grassroots movement Momentum. Good morning to you, James.
Morning, Paul.
Thanks so much for joining me. I don't know whether you heard my interview with Peter Kyle about 10, 15 minutes ago, but he was holding the line as a Labour frontbencher that Labour will continue to call for humanitarian pauses in the conflict, but the Labour won't go as far as calling for a ceasefire. What do you make of that?
It's unforgivable. I mean, humanitarian pauses means that the destruction of Gaza, the killing of innocent lives, happens slightly more slowly, with a break for some humanitarian goods to get in on a Tuesday afternoon. It is in no way what is required. We just heard you getting the latest there from Matt Fry. The situation is unspeakable, and it's even worse than we know because we aren't getting any information out. Very, very clearly, there needs to be a ceasefire now, which is why almost every country on earth is calling for one. The United Nations is calling for one. 76% of people in the UK, according to a YouGov poll, want one. 2/3 of people in the US want one. The only people that don't want a ceasefire, it seems, are the governments of the US, the UK and Israel, and the Labour Party, which is tucking in behind those three.
What did you make of Peter Kyle's argument that you do have to show unity, though, in the face of terrorism, and Hamas is a prescribed terrorist group? And actually, if the Labour Party starts to peel away from government policy, then it starts to look to Hamas as if the world is divided, and there is strength in unity.
The world is united. The overwhelming majority of the world is united in wanting to see peace and a ceasefire and liberation for the Palestinian people. That is what the overwhelming majority of people on earth want. That's what the overwhelming majority of governments on earth want. That's what most people in the countries, the UK and the US, whose governments are opposed to those things, also want. This idea that the only thing you can do is follow the government, which follows the US, is the absolute opposite of leadership. The Labour Party right now, I don't particularly want to talk about the Labour Party other than the fact that if they change position, it puts pressure on the government, which can make a material difference in the field. But the idea that the only form of acceptable political activity, just do whatever the US is going to do, is an abdication of moral responsibility.
And it's not going to hold, is it? I appreciate you don't want to talk too much about the Labour Party, but I've got to ask you, with that division within the Labour Party, when you were a key member of the Labour team, Israel and Gaza and Palestine and Hamas, they've always been challenging issues for the Labour Party. There have always been differences of opinion within the Labour Party about policy in this area, but is it sustainable for Keir Starmer to say, look, the frontbench policy is that we want humanitarian pauses, we don't want a ceasefire, but for then there to be frontbenchers who are publicly calling for a ceasefire and breaking with that policy? How long can that go on for?
Well, when discipline breaks down in politics, then it goes very fast because Labour MPs will now be getting huge amounts of pressure from their constituents. Phone calls, emails, people turning up at their office, ordinary people horrified by what's going on, who know that we have a role to play in bringing about peace because Britain arms and diplomatically supports Israel. So changing the position of the opposition party in the UK can have a real effect. And MPs are feeling huge pressure, and that's why they're coming out one by one in an uncoordinated fashion to say there needs to be a ceasefire now. And now so many have come out, including, I think it's 13 members of the front bench, could be more, as well as Labour mayors. I think, it would be impossible. Peter Kyle couldn't say whether there would be disciplining of them. I can't imagine how you could discipline this many people. And also, the Labour MPs, those on the front bench, the leadership, they should see which way this is going. We've already had more than 7,000, 8,000 people killed, more than 3,000 children. These horrific numbers are only going up with these actions. The moral clarity for a ceasefire is only going to get sharper and sharper and sharper. And unless you want that splinter in the very core of the Labour Party, they need to change position.
Okay, it's going to be an interesting one to watch politically back here. James Schneider, thank you so much for your time. That was James Schneider there, who is Communications Director for Progressive International and co-founder of left-wing grassroots movement Momentum. Of course, he was a big figure under Jeremy Corbyn.